Hi everyone, this is Shelley and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. I'm back with another Question the Narrative video, and in today's video I just wanted to talk briefly about full preterism and the Hymenaeus and Philetus heresy. The Hymenaeus and Philetus heresy is actually an accusation that started being thrown my way when I was still making videos about the little season. So I know that those who believe in little season eschatology also probably face people leaving comments about this. And at the time, it troubled me. No one wants to be a heretic. No one wants to mislead people. At least I sure hope not. I know that I don't want to mislead people. And I pray all the time to the Lord for discernment for me to not mislead people. And, that is something that I'm setting out to do, is to finding out what the scripture actually says. So let's find out what 2 Timothy 2 verses, we will start with 15 and we will go down to 18. Do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly handles the word of truth. Avoid godless chatter, because those who indulge in it will become more and more ungodly. Their teaching will spread like gangrene. Among them are Hymenaeus and Philetus, who have departed from the truth. They say that the resurrection has already taken place, and they destroy the faith of some. So the first time that someone sent that to me, I thought to myself, oh my word, it says it right here that there are people who were saying at that time that the resurrection had already taken place and they are being accused of heresy. And I thought to myself, what am I doing? But when I actually took a step back, took a deep breath, prayed about it, I realized that there are some huge differences between what Hymenaeus and Philetus did and what preterists do. And now, as a full preterist, I hear that charge even more than when I was in the little season eschatology. But let's go over why they're not even close to being the same thing. So the first thing that I want to point out, and it's something that I realized again while I was still in the little season eschatology, is that 2 Timothy, first of all, was Paul writing to Timothy, and he was writing to Timothy about two people who were saying this in the first century. Okay? We are not in the first century. We are in 2025. And so to take this verse and to say that since two people in the first century, and actually according to Ed Stevens, 2 Timothy was written about late AD 63. So if you have something that was written in AD 63, and because something hadn't happened yet when that was written, then that must obviously mean that it hasn't happened yet in 2025. Well, that just doesn't make any sense, does it? Lots of things have happened in 2025 that had not happened yet in AD 63. And I'm hoping that I certainly don't need to explain that because that is pretty obvious. So to use the argument that a first century letter said that something hadn't happened yet, and then you're going to say in 2025 that, oh, well, this letter written all this time ago, 2000 years ago, says that this didn't happen yet, so obviously it hasn't happened yet. That is, I cannot, that is such a huge mistake. I mean, I don't know how much further you could get from audience relevance than thinking that because something didn't happen 2000 years ago that it hasn't happened yet. And so here, these coins are actually from AD 63. That is Nero on the coins. And you know what? The letter that was written in AD 63, yes, it was written before the resurrection had happened. It had not happened yet in AD 63. And I believe that it happened in AD 70. So yes, the letter would have been correct. The resurrection had not happened yet because the resurrection happened in AD 70 at the destruction of Jerusalem. So then you might be thinking to yourself, okay, well, it says that it was upsetting the faith of some, and preterism certainly upsets the faith of people. Yes, it does upset people because they get triggered because it is so different from what they have been conditioned to believe. And it's something that I even had to let go of. You have to just let go of all of your preconceived notions, and you have to read the Bible with new eyes in order to understand that many of the ways that we have been taught to read the Bible are simply not the way the original author intended it to be read. So the portion saying that it was upsetting the faith of some, it wasn't just a matter of people being triggered because it was different than the sort of eschatological view that they had at that time. The reason that it was upsetting the faith of some was because Hymenaeus and Philetus were saying that the resurrection had already happened and the temple was still standing. That is why the faith the faith of some was being upset, because they could see that temple still standing. They knew that the old covenant was still in effect. And why were they waiting for that temple to fall? And why were they waiting for that to happen, to know that that would be the end of the age? That would be the time of the judgment and the resurrection? Well, because not only did the Tanakh tell them in Daniel, but Jesus himself told them that the destruction of the temple would be the time that the resurrection and the judgment and obviously his coming would all happen. Let's read Daniel 12, and we're just going to read verse 7. And I heard the man clothed in linen who was above the waters of the stream. He raised his right hand and his left hand toward heaven and swore by him who lives forever that it would be for a time, times, and half a time, and that when the shattering of the power of the holy people comes to an end, all these things would be finished. So, what was the power of the holy people? The power of the holy people was the temple and the old covenant and all these things. Now, I did go over this chapter in a recent video, but I think it's important that I'm going to read the beginning part of Daniel 12. I wasn't going to, but it's important. At that time shall arise Michael, the great prince, who has charge of your people, and there shall be a time of trouble, the tribulation, such as never has been since there was a nation till that time. But at that time your people shall be delivered, everyone whose name shall be found written in the book, and many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. So as you can see here, the resurrection and the judgment are linked to the tribulation. Okay, they cannot be separated. And those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the sky above, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Is it the end of the world? No, it is the end of the old covenant age. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. So we're talking about the tribulation, the resurrection, and the judgment. And it says that all of these things shall occur at the shattering of the power of the holy people. So, of course, it would make sense that people who are hearing other people saying that the resurrection had already happened, they're expecting not only the resurrection, they're expecting the judgment, and they were looking forward to the end of the old covenant age. But it is still in place. And so they were wondering probably if they had been lied to about this. That is why it was upsetting the faith of some. Not only that, Jesus himself said that the destruction of the temple would be the culmination of everything. Right in Matthew 24. Jesus left the temple and was walking away when his disciples came up to him to call his attention to its buildings. Do you see all these things? He asked. Truly, I tell you, not one stone here will be left on another. Every one will be thrown down. As Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. Tell us, they said, when will this happen, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Jesus answered, watch out that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, claiming I am the Messiah, and will deceive many. You will hear of wars. And I want you to understand that when he is saying you, he's talking to his disciples, okay? He's talking to the people standing there with him. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. Then you will be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me. And I have to add in that those things happened to the people he was talking to. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Could Hymenaeus and Philetus be two of those false prophets? Possibly. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. This is important. Let the reader understand, because this gospel was circulating through the first century Christians, okay? It was written to the people in the first century. Let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. And I talked about this in other videos that they did flee to the mountains. The Christians did. They fled to Pella. Let no one on the housetop go down to take anything out of the house. Let no one in the field go back to get their cloak. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that your flight will not take place in winter or on the Sabbath. Now, these are huge clues that this is not talking to us today, because there's not many places around the world where people actually do things on their housetops. And there are not many places that, if any, that I know of that restrict travel on the Sabbath. He was talking to the people standing there with him. For then there will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again. If those days had not been cut short, no one would survive, but for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. At that time, if anyone says to you, look, here is the Messiah, or there he is, do not believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you ahead of time. So if anyone tells you, there he is out in the wilderness, do not go out, or here he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as lightning that comes from the east is visible even in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever there is a carcass, there the vultures will gather. Immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. I'm going to interject here that if you are reading this as a literal thing that is going to happen, then you need to go back. You need to study the Old Testament and see how often the exact same language is used in the judgment of other nations, and in fact, in the 586 judgment of Jerusalem. Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then all the peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Let's not forget that earth, if you look at it in the Greek, it means land. Okay, this is a regional judgment. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, more apocalyptic language, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near. Even so, when you see all these things, you know that it is near, right at the door. Truly, I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. So right here, Jesus starts out right away talking about the destruction of the temple. And then he goes on to say everything else that is going to happen after that. The people of that time understood that Jesus was talking about the end of the old covenant. Many times in Bibles today, it's translated as the end of the world. But that is a mistranslation. It is the end of the age. and the people that the Bible was written to understood that. Okay, and that is so important. We need to remember that the Bible was not written to us in 2025. So we communicate differently than they do, or they did. We just completely different. Does it mean that we can't take anything from the Bible and apply it, or that it has nothing to do with us? Of course not, because we are still God's people. However, when it comes to these prophecies, they were fulfilled in AD 70, which is fantastic news for us as Christians, because we are already living in the presence of God. He is already down here on earth with us. And that we, as the New Jerusalem, are already down here on the earth. Everything that Jesus promised, he did. And not only did he do it, he said he did it when he said he would. He said he would do it in his generation. He did do it in his generation. He did it in AD 70. So when people bring up the Hymenaeus and Philetus charge, I would have to say, you need to look into the context of that. Because again, yeah, the resurrection hadn't happened in AD 63. It happened in AD 70. So they were saying that it happened before it actually did. And most importantly, they were upsetting the faith of some because they were saying that the resurrection had already occurred and the temple was still standing. And that was the sign that people were looking for, the destruction of the temple. Now, another important thing to realize is that it is thought that Hymenaeus and Philetus were Judaizers. And so what they were trying to do was they were trying to bring in the new covenant, but they were trying to say that the law would still stand. So to them, they thought the temple should still be there when the resurrection occurred, because they were still trying to tie in the old covenant laws, the regulations, and instead of just taking what Jesus did on the cross as being enough, it is enough. We didn't need that temple anymore. We don't need that temple anymore. And that is such a fantastic thing. And people say, oh, well, full preterism, it takes away my hope. Why? Why does it take away your hope? Do you want to go through a tribulation? Do you want to go through Armageddon? Do you want to be physically taken off of this earth while you still have loved ones down here who are being slaughtered? If that is your view of what is coming at the end, that's hope. To me, hope is knowing that everything is fulfilled and that Jesus did everything he said he would when he said he would. That is hope. And I'm so thankful to God every day. And it is still our commission to bring people into the city, into the New Jerusalem, so that they can reap the benefits of what Jesus has done. Anyway, that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one down below. And if you like my work and would like to become a channel member, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well, or you can just click on it right on my channel page. And I hope you have a great day.